Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Levinson, and you are at the Agency Side podcast. I'm really excited to have Alex Cohn here as my guest. He is head of content at Zambezi. And we're super excited to have him here and hear his story. Thanks for being with us, Alex.
Yeah. My pleasure. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, man. So the first thing I like to ask everyone on the show is how did you get into this particular space? Which is probably a long story, but I'll let you go at it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do too long. I mean, it was a little bit of happenstance. It was a little bit of luck. It was a little bit of sort of weirdness. I mean, the truth is, if this makes any sense, I met a guy in an ice cream shop that forever changed the course of I mean, it's not that dramatic, but I had recently moved to Los Angeles because my son was about 1.5 and my wife decided that she didn't want winter anymore. And I had been primarily doing TV and film in a lot of different capacities. I had done everything from starting out as a PA on like big Hollywood features and working my way up through the locations department. I had been an AD for a little while. I had a small production shop in Brooklyn where we did stop motion animation and puppet stuff. And I had produced, and done some documentary work. I had done TV work. I mean, literally I had done like a little bit of everything you can think of and commercial work alongside it, but really hadn't really had any real agency experience. I really just knew the production side really well. So I had been working on a show as a story producer in New York and met some LA people. I mean, I had friends, but I met some LA people who could bring, it was like, I want to move to LA, keep an eye out for me. And got a job on a show out here with Original Pictures. Oh no, sorry. That was the second one. I got a show out here with History Channel through Triage Productions. I don't know if they're still around. Anyway, I was working on that. And like I said, my kid was about 2 years old. And I was on Abbot Kinney in Venice and ran into Chris Rye, who is the founder of our agency. And he had a daughter who was about 2 years old. And our kids start playing. And Chris, being who he is, who is a loquacious sort of people person who puts people together and that is his superpower, is a connector of people, was like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a producer." He's like, "Oh, we might be looking for a producer." So,
Wow.
Chris comes from a long line of like real agency powerhouse. So started at Fallon, was at Nike, was at Wyden and Kennedy in Portland on the Nike business. He and his partner, creative director, were approached by Kobe Bryant to start an agency in LA. This must have been 2007, 2008. So they moved from Portland to LA, started this agency, had a few clients, and I don't know, they were like 5 or 6 people when I first, we stayed in touch, and he had a freelance gig, and I came in and we did and they had somehow, with this like tiny little agency, won the Vitamin Water account.
Wow.
And so I came in and we did a Vitamin Water job that was kind of bananas with Gary Busey, Adrian Peterson, and I believe I like to claim to fame. Jake might disagree, but I'm pretty sure we gave Jake Szymanski that. I believe it was his first commercial, or it was like a short, sort of funny film thing. He had just done some Funny or Die stuff and the High Five guys, and was just starting to like be a thing. I met the guys from Caviar, who were great, who we owe a lot of our early, we were early partners with them on a lot of things. Michael Sagal and company. And it was a great sort of thing. And we did that. And then that was like a freelance gig. And I went away and did another TV job. And then they called me back a few months later and they had something else. And we had done the Vitamin Water job, and Smart Water was having trouble with an idea. They had Jennifer Aniston, they had Smart Water, they could not sell an idea. So they called us, our guys came up with an idea. Next thing we know, we're producing the Smart Water sex tape viral video with Jennifer. And by the time that was over, which I think went 3 or 4 months longer than it should have, we had more clients. And I was like, I was excited. I was like, let's do this. And
Yeah.
so I've been
Wow.
here ever
And that
since.
the vitamin water, not to interrupt you, but the vitamin water, you said Adrian Peterson, so like the Minnesota Vikings running back at that guy. That was okay. So
Yeah.
I just want
Adrian
to make sure.
Peterson, yeah.
How did they win?
And Garrett Busey, who would not wear the right pants because he kept saying, well, you're only shooting me from the top. I'm just going to wear jeans. Because, I mean, talk about a character. He was definitely...
Well,
Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, no, I was curious. How do you think that campaign was won, kind of like an unknown agency at that time landing that gig? How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, that was a little before my time that they won. It wasn't just a campaign. We were AOR for, I think, 3 years. I mean, I think that again, like I wasn't there. I've heard stories about crazy cab rides and changing the creative like an hour before the pitch. So, I mean, they were creative guys. They were young. They were startup-y. I think they had a lot of energy. I think they came up with a really great idea and really great. So they did a series of these big spots with this was just before I started, like Sarah Silverman was one of the voices, and I'm trying to think. It was a few like big celebrities. It was a big CG spot that they had done with PSYOP. They came up with this really cool sort of like turning. So the vitamin water was like, wake up, it had this like this graphic turn sort of thing. I mean, it was a cool, smart, sexy campaign. And we did vitamin water for a few years. So I was at the tail end of that. And then there was some change in leadership. But we stayed, we did smart water and we stayed. What was great is that the Coca-Cola company is, really world-class in marketing. And they have so many brands. So we popped over, we did some work for Sprite. We would do work for Gold Peak Iced Tea. We did some Dasani. We had in the early days of Zambezi, that was the Coke ecosphere, was really a place where we grew up and we learned a lot. And a lot of even some of our current clients today are people who came out of the marketing department at Coca-Cola, just because the way they approach marketing is really smart and they're well trained, and it's a real art and a real science. We're really thankful for those early days and those connections.
Yeah. What is your, I guess, what does your kind of role look like in terms of like the scope of this as leading head of content? I'm sure you wear a lot of hats. What's it like to be you?
Yeah. I mean, these days it's different. So I sort of play both sides, like some heads of production or heads of content out there, in that we have now a larger studio offering as well. So we have post-production, we do motion graphics, we have live action directors, not an exclusive roster, but a roster of, so we run that for our own clients, but also outside of that. So we have some direct to brand relationships and even a couple of agency relationships where we serve as a production studio, and we do soup to nuts on that. So we can go anywhere from combining with Zambezi and doing strategy, creative, production, post-production, finishing, all that, to anywhere along in the process. You want us to just shoot your spot, and we just won, don't want to brag, we just won some Clios for some spots we just produced with ESPN Creative Studios, and we had nothing to do with the creative. We literally come in like a production company. We, had a director who they loved and did it. Amy Hoffman, she did a great job. A series of spots featuring Caitlin Clark and Camila Cardoza and Kiki Rice, and like right time, right place, promoting this ESPN documentary about the WNBA. So we just won a bunch of Clios for that, where we served literally as the production. And I think we did some of the finishing. I think we probably did the color and some VFX, but someone else did the edit. And so, they have a creative department, so we can function like that. But then obviously as an agency, we don't always work with that production. So we still partner with all the regular people that you would think we're doing. We have a job coming up with Tucker Bliss at Reset, who we've worked with before on a past campaign. So sort of keeping an eye on all of that is a full-time job. I'm a little less, we have a really strong EP now. So I'm not as day-to-day in the agency side, because we try to keep that separation at church and state. But I'm still here and I still have that part of what I do, but we have Jerry Lowe as our EP now, and she's fantastic. And she runs a lot of the show, but I'm there to chat about things or throw in a director that I think would be good if I have an idea or something we're doing, or some, people I think would be helpful for whatever project. So we don't,
And
we try not to discriminate.
Yeah. Are you dealing a lot with the celebrity people that you're working with? Are you engaging with them and discussing things? And do you have a lot of direct contact with people?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends where that relationship comes from, right? A lot of times the brand owns the relationship with whoever their spokesperson is, or a sponsorship. But we have an upcoming campaign that I can't talk about yet, that we sort of really helped them decide who the right person was. We, reached out to her agents. We 2 months to make the deal, like all those things, and then running that relationship. So we certainly have that as part of what we do, but it depends. We just worked on a campaign earlier this year with Jennifer Gardner, where she is, part of it's her company.
Right.
It's, so Once Upon a Farm is her baby or all organic baby food brand. And so we're working with Jen, and we have all the same machinations you have with celebrity, where, even her own company, the clients don't realize, the cost of maybe her glam squad or her wardrobe might be, but that's just sort of how it is. But she comes with, so we've done it both ways. We've certainly worked with lots of brands, and Vitamin Water was really good at that, having the celebrities as part of their deal, and Beats as well. So we know how to work with those celebrities, but we're not owning that relationship. And then others, like this upcoming one that I won't talk about till later, where we help them we sort of own that relationship and help the clients sort of run that maze, because it's new for them, right? It's like, oh, well, how come it doesn't come together in like a week? We can just reach out to so-and-so and see if they want to do it and offer them this. And it's like a whole, how it is. It's like, it's a thing. It takes a minute.
Do you have a favorite part out of all these? I know the clients come with various needs, and you kind of like acquiesce to the need. But is there like a certain thing that you enjoy doing the most in your job, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most fun part is really putting the right sort of team, the right people together. So whether that's finding like, oh, there's this amazing, up and coming director who would be perfect for this, that you might not have heard of now, but they're going to be, that's always super satisfying. Like, giving Jake Zambezi and then watching his career, just like, I can't even afford Jake now anymore. Most of my clients, like, or seeing someone like Hiro Murai after their like, Flying Lotus music video before Atlanta, and being like, oh, there's this guy you guys should check out. And sometimes the creatives are open to that, and sometimes they're like, and then a year or two later they're like, can we get them? Like, you're like, man, I don't know, like you missed your shot. So yeah, exactly. So that's always fun. And again, like sort of finding the right person for the fit, whether that's director on a roster or a new director that, we're working with through Finn, who's sort of up and coming. And then, all the DP and PD, production designers, and like sort of putting together that team, and an editor, and like all the sort of pieces, and then helping to, with the creatives, you're, making sure that you're always fulfilling the creatives and their idea, but where you can, helping to shape around the edges, or, make sure that everybody is understanding what you're doing. So there's no, part of, especially in advertising, the communication is so important, right? Because you're trying to get all these different people to see the same thing, right? And the creatives have a vision, and then the director comes along and they sort of collaborate, and then the vision changes a little bit, or expands a little bit, or whatever it is. But it's so important, I think, as the agency producer, to work with account and client to make sure that the client really sees clearly what the creatives and the director are after, so that in the end, or as it talk about it, like sort of going through the production machine, and it's like broken apart in a million pieces and you can't always identify like, oh, this shot, yeah, it's going to be, don't worry about this thing because we're going to use it in this way. And it's like making sure everybody shares that clear vision so that when it comes out the other end and goes through the edit and gets realized, everyone is like, yes, that's what we thought. Not like, we don't want it like that. You have to change this. And then that's where things get like, watered down, and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, or it doesn't say what it's supposed to say, or it doesn't look the way it's supposed to look. Sometimes that is because you haven't communicated it clearly to everybody initially.
So is that, would you say, like a high level of importance when you're hiring people and bringing people on your team, that you want them to be really great communicators to get in front of all that stuff?
Yeah, I think sort of creative like really understanding something and being able to imagine, visualize, explain, give context so that really everybody, and again, like that's, it's everybody's job, right? Creatives have to pitch it so that clients can realize it. Account has to support it so that directors have to be able to treat and do but you're all working together, hopefully, again, to like have this shared vision. It doesn't mean you can't have those happy accidents and surprises and things that make it even better. But ideally, like you build that shared vision and you build trust so that everybody's on the same page. I think we've all seen, a great idea get, I say, watered down or death by 1,000 cuts or all these things, and it doesn't quite rise to the level that you hoped or wanted it to. And
you think it's the client that typically gets the pushback, wants it their way, and the creative people really have a broader idea of what they want or something more original?
Sometimes, I mean, it depends. It can happen for so many reasons in so many ways. Maybe the thing that you thought on paper was making sense doesn't make sense when you put it on film, right? Like that happens. Some things just don't come out the way you want. Some things change as they go. But I think that, the job of the producer, but the job of everyone ideally is to like bring everybody along on that journey so everyone feels like, and it's tricky too, right? It's not quite the same as entertainment where the only job is to entertain. You have to do the entertainment and you have to tell a very specific story. You are, at the end of the day, selling something or imparting something or, communicating something very specific in some way. So that clarity has to come through. And again, that's everybody's job. But our job, I think, as producers really is to support that like kernel of the creative idea that first got everybody excited to go do these things, and making sure that really, comes through with, putting that team together and helping the creatives and supporting that idea through the.
Have you been nervous before with some of these big campaigns and these big name people come through? Do you ever feel get a little shooken up?
I mean, yeah, listen, every production has its like, oh my God, is this really gonna happen? And have like, hey, some go really smooth and some like have like crazy hurdles that you have to, and challenges that you have to get around, get over, get through. You never know. And certainly I've learned that the ease of a production or how smoothly it goes has very little, doesn't always have anything to do with how the final, some of the hardest shoots ever lead to the best, and some of the hardest shoots ever, you can sort of see it and it didn't quite work out, but you just never know. Like it really is, strength and clarity of an idea, and then just sort of smart, thoughtful decision making, like, great idea, great director, great talent, all those, great art direction, all those things, if they come together, it can be magic. It can be amazing.
Does the product always go to the public? Is there ever a time where the product does end up, maybe it's an idea that they spend a lot of money on to make, but then they say, I'm not sure if I want to put this out, or is it pretty much it's going out?
I've only seen that once where it didn't, and it was it was a little bit it was a little bit, I'm not sure where, because I wasn't as close to the inner workings of what was going on. I think that and we're not Apple. We don't make a bunch of stuff that never, it's like they fully make everything and then only show some things, which would be, that's a nice luxury to have. I only had it once, and it really was, I think it was like a change of strategy, so that we made the spot, and then literally the sort of messaging that they decided to go out into the world with had changed. So the spot didn't really fit that anymore. But I had only seen that once. And then they actually ended up running the spot we had done for them the previous year, because they liked it so much and it was closer to the messaging that they wanted to do. But I don't know that it was a product, like the work came out good. It just didn't, they just changed the thing that they were trying to say.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I know, like, well, it's sometimes on like the creative agency is a lot of the agencies that we work with sometimes for like editors and different, they'll make a lot of different cuts and a lot of different things, and that what they've done never goes to finish. Some other agency that it goes, and so it's like they've spent a lot of time doing all of this, and it's like, well, that sucks.
We've certainly spent a lot of time pitching, and we've certainly, like, we're in a pitch now where that goes all the way to like full animatics, and they do that with 3 different agencies, and it goes to, and Coke actually used to do that a lot. They were big on testing and doing a lot of stuff, so they would, it was competitive. They would do competitive testing, so they would maybe have an idea from a few different people, and they would build out animated animatics and then go into testing, and the thing that did the best would actually go into production. But I haven't seen doesn't happen a lot that I've seen, that where we would do the entire thing and then it all sort of dies.
Yeah,
which is good. Which is good, right?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's the nice thing about commercials over entertainment. And so, you don't go into development hell for 6 months and you're turning around on a project, but we're going to make something, and it's going to make it in March, and it's going to go live in May. It's nice because you get to keep going.
There must be a real art to making something that tells that story in such a short amount of time, right? Because the things that you're doing you got to get something across, and it's not like you have all day to make that point.
30 seconds is an art form. 30 seconds is definitely an art form, and there's less commercials these days, and there's more other kinds of content, but to tell a succinct story and have a point in 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever is not the same as doing a movie or a short film or any of those other things. You have to be really thoughtful. You have to indicate. You have to do things that will read. This is going to read quickly like this. It's gonna, it's if you do it like that, it's sort of too subtle. You have to be, and you can be subtle in some ways, but you have to communicate quickly, and you have to communicate to people who are maybe not paying super close attention. I think sometimes we get into an edit and people watch it back 6 times, and and it's like people are, I don't know. There was a movie, like the TV something with Sigourney Weaver was like the big TV executive, and David Duchovny was like the artist, EP trying to make his show. And she said something like, TV is what, people watch TV while they're doing other things. They're not necessarily paying close attention or listening or that's the whole evolution of interactive and what we're doing now, right? It's not a one-way conversation anymore. It's a 2-way conversation in most cases, in most of what we do these days, and inviting people in. So I just think you have to be so clear in your communication that you can't miss it. You can't miss what we're trying to say. That's why, like, high concept, like big stuff that you can't miss is really great creative. I think if you try to be too subtle in a short form, like a 30-second, people just, they're not paying close enough attention to get what you're doing. You got to be a little more.
I imagine the editing down of the ideas must be. I always think of that. I don't know if it's Abraham Lincoln's quote or not, but I think it might be by somebody else. But it's like, I would have written a shorter speech if I had the time.
More time, Mark Twain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have
Mark's saying,
written you a shorter letter, but here's a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one.
yeah, and I imagine it's that. And do you find that you're really is there a lot of research that goes in, that goes towards like the demographic that you're going after with a certain production that you're making, that
Yeah,
you
yeah, of
have
course.
these people, it's going to be
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
this is what's
yeah,
going to
of
get their,
course. Yeah,
attention.
of course. And listen, some clients are more data driven and research driven than others.
Yeah.
Some clients are just like, we just want a funny idea, or we just want this idea. I think I'm a big fan of not skimping on the strategy and like really finding out who your audience is, who you're talking to, what their demographic is. Not that you make anyone into a monolith, but it's, if I'm talking to like middle school kid, or am I talking to the mom or the dad of the kid? Or am I talking to like a single, urban, hipster person in their 20s? Or am I talking to a 60-year-old retiree in India? Like it makes a difference in terms of the story you want to tell, or not even that, just like, and it's not in a manipulative way. I just think it's, and there are universal stories, and so I don't want to get too caught up in it, but I do think it's good to know who you're talking to and what you're trying to say, and just make that, again, you have 30 seconds to tell the clearest, most concise, and also, entertaining too, right? It has to be interesting enough that you're going to remember it or watch it or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think you should consider all of those things, and some clients are more into that. It's obviously a cost, and it takes time, and it takes effort, but I do not think that there is a substitute for really good strategy and unlocking some like real insight that really turn something on and lights people up, and people go, oh yeah, and like, I get it. And it's really, and if you do it right, it can be really powerful and can really help brands. Like we talk a lot about working with high performing products and making sure that their marketing is not like performance like DR, but like their marketing and that their communications are as high performing as what they do. So and increasing their valuation. So we work with TaylorMade Golf as one of our clients for the longest time. I think it's a little over 10 years now, which is kind of unheard of, but helping turn them from, I think when they were sold off from Adidas, I think they were worth like 425 million to a more recent valuation around 2 billion. But so to 5x there, you have to be really clear with your marketing. And we've gone through a couple different variations on like tone of voice and how we approach people and how we're talking to them, but finding and unlocking like something through strategy, through talking to people, through audience, through, and this idea of beyond driven, that it's really, in the golf world, it's really about R&D, and it's really about giving, like, we work just as hard as you to unlock those additional pieces of technology to get your game a little better, and that we are as crazy about this game of golf as you are, has been really successful, and audiences have really sort of sparked to that idea. But it took a while, and it took lots of talking to people and lots of research and lots of not only data, but audience study and all those things to unlock this sort of strategy that then sort of becomes the North Star for everything we do. But it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Are you actually a big sports guy too? I know you're doing this stuff. Are you sports?
I'm a medium sports guy. Like I watch, I'm not watching every single game every night, but I'm a main sport playoffs and Olympics and things like that. Like, there are sportier people than myself, certainly, and we have a lot of them. But I have a general gist of sportiness.
Yeah. Do you see any big like hurdles or I guess like pain points in the industry at this point that you kind of feel are things that are looming?
Yeah. I mean, I see pain points. I mean, we can go down the AI rabbit hole. There's a
Um,
whole conversation to be had there. I think the pain points as I see them, I think especially in major production hubs, New York, LA, Miami, Chicago, those kind of things, is that the cost of production has grown a lot. And, we are constantly, sort of fighting with ourselves. I mean, I would like to shoot in Los Angeles. I would like to shoot in New York. I would like to keep, production in these hubs where crews and talent and not only people live, but depend on, this art form for their living, and Hollywood and New York and places like that. We really have, because I was from New York and moved to LA, so I'm familiar with both. And we really, there is a history and a lineage of making production. I mean, there's no substitute for shooting in New York City, right?
yeah,
It is a beautiful place to shoot. And even in LA, there's some things here. There's a quality of light. There's some locations that, the talent you can get. All these things are kind of irreplicable. And yet, some cost cutting, but
right.
downward pressure on budgets from clients who now, again, like can't just make a 30 or a 60 and that's all they do, right? They have to make constant content. So what happens is marketing budgets have to get spread over a lot more assets. So what they have in terms of budgets comes down.
Uh,
So it becomes really hard to shoot. So there's a lot more pressure to shoot overseas, to shoot in ways that are, just trying to get, and costs have gotten really high. And there's a balance, right? Because again, we do like the cost of living in some of these places. If you're a grip or you're a gaffer or you're a makeup person, you need to get paid. But there's only certain clients that can afford those types of budgets. So I think it's a real challenge for, State Farm is going to shoot wherever state, right? And they have
yeah,
hundreds of millions of dollars that go to media and production. But there's a lot of brands and a lot of clients who can't or won't spend that sort of money on production. And I think, I don't know exactly what the answer to that is. I
yeah.
suspect that, again, like it just sort of transition to the AI thing, that it's going to be a cost saver, but that is also, on some level going
Quality
to
killer,
be,
maybe. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I've seen in just a year, like some of the quality is unbelievable
yeah.
for a nascent technology that has just barely started. So I don't know where it's headed, but I do worry about, again, like those gaffers and the grips and like a lot of the below the line people, that when people just start making commercials and ultimately, and it'll probably start with commercials before films, because, right now, obviously there's cap. You can only shoot, 3 to 5 seconds a shot, but that's fine for most commercials. And I do think that will be the testing ground for a lot of this stuff. But when you start
Yeah.
making, commercials in the computer, maybe you still have a director, maybe you still have maybe you even have a production designer or a wardrobe, direct, wardrobe stylist to sort of put the outfits on, and maybe you even have a DP, but I don't know that you need that. You're not going to have any grips, and you're not going to have any, craft service, and you're not going to have lighting, because it's going to be 4 people
Get
in
a
a
for
room with
DP
a computer,
prompter who can put
Yeah,
the
I mean
best.
that. Yeah. I mean 100%. I mean, I still think the creative part and the decision making is still going to come from those creative people, sort of heads of department type level. But eventually,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be dystopian about it. And maybe this is 5 years, maybe this is 10. I don't know how soon that's going to happen. But you will be able to do a lot more without having to show up, at the food truck in the morning, get your burrito, and then go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of
Seeing it in
scary.
every industry, seeing it a lot in the recruitment industry, AI, bots that are doing all kinds of things for us and changing the industry and
Yeah.
changing the market approach and the It's
100%.
pretty crazy. I lost my train of thought for 1 second, but I was going to ask you, yeah, the future has just gotten into my head all of a sudden.
Right.
But yeah, so do you find yourself traveling a lot now? Are you going to like Mexico City or going to all different kind of places that are more affordable? I've talked to people recently in some other big, large design studios who've told me very similar thing where they have to leave LA and do shoots in a lot of other places for cost cutting and that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we are lucky in the fact that we are tethered. We have a big shoot, like I mentioned, coming up with a big celebrity, and we're not going to go to Estonia to shoot
Oh,
that
I got
because
clients already.
she's like, we're shooting in LA because I'm not going anywhere. And so great. I get to stay home and do that shoot. And we just got off a big set of spots that we make for our clients at TaylorMade, and the athletes, again, we go to them, and that's in Florida, and that's fine, and that's lovely. But we certainly are, we certainly do have to go to Canada sometimes. We've been to Eastern Europe. We can go to Mexico City, or even Mexico City is getting expensive now because it's so busy down there. But it goes further. We go to, we've certainly looked at Chile and Lisbon and Prague and all these other places where the costs are just more reasonable depending on what it is. If you have a one-dayer, there's not enough savings, but anything like 2 days or more, the savings is significant. And the creatives push for it because they want to get more they want bigger art direction budgets, and they want to get, they want to have like bigger locations, and they want to shoot 3 day, where we can maybe make 2 days work in LA. They can get 3 days of shooting. And I get it, right? If I'm the creative director, I'm pushing for that. But I don't know what the solution is there. I think, there's union and there's non-union, but the only thing I can think of is there is, what SAG has done is there is that sort of, they have this middle ground, right? There's like the SAG contract, and then you can sometimes budgets under, I can't remember what the number is, you can get a waiver and you can get SAG talent at a sort of discounted rate if they're willing to do it, and your budget is XYZ. And I think it would be, I don't know, it might be something that the unions might consider, to do, but it's crazy because I also know that then brands, some clients who do have the money start taking advantage of that and say they do, it's really, cannot say that I know what the solution is.
Yeah.
I do know that, we want to, we want to pay everybody a fair wage, but I do know that sometimes those big union spots are either out of range for some budgets. It's just, it's tough.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm like a problem solver at heart, so I'm always trying to figure out
what the solution is.
I always hear, everybody I talk to, it's that costs, the people want more for less, basically.
Yeah, of course.
And it's always it's a constant battle. But I guess on a lighter note, because we just have a couple more minutes here, what do you do for fun? What gets you up in the morning outside
of you go watch movies and look for directors to just, yeah, I mean, I was born and raised on TV, and I just love everything visual. I try to think of myself somewhat as a filmmaker at heart, as a producer, and trying to always look for talent and find new voices and find exciting things and entertainment. I try to exercise and hang out with my family and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the job and the fun part of it, that's the fun part of it. You get to watch lots of stuff and go, oh, that's cool. Maybe that person or this technique, or we could do something with that and make something cool for this client, or do something like this for that. It's always inspirational to see sort of what's going on out there and see. I do think going back to the AI or whatever, there's so many new interesting techniques that you can do, whether it's with CG or just the way that even the physical equipment, that you can use these days with motion control and different kinds of steady cams and wire cams and all these kind of fun, cool things. And people are always pushing that envelope of what you can do in a, everyone's trying to make the longest, most complicated single shot take where you're, going through these things or whatever. But it's so much fun to like see how those things could come together and to try to like, borrow and steal and use different techniques in different ways. And I don't know, there's always interesting, exciting filmmakers out there, and it's interesting to see what people do and the stories that people can put together. And I don't know, try to hook them up and find brands or clients or creative that can use those things and bring some of that fun entertainment side of style to what we do, creatively and for the brand partnership.
Yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show here. I hope you didn't hear. I know one of my kids is playing the piano up there, so we might have a little film scoring added to our.
That's the goal. It's all right. I have a piano kid myself, so all through COVID, I would sit. When we were at home, I would sit and people would hear him practicing in the other room as I was on my calls. It became kind of an inside joke. It was really fun.
It's pretty fun, but sometimes when you're like trying to have a conversation with somebody on a podcast, it can really can rattle your train of thought.
Yes, I totally understand. I did want to mention the other fun thing whatever, you can use this or not. We did just put together our first pilot for an actual show, like literally a TV show. So not necessarily a branded thing, but we worked with Tennis Channel the last few years on a series we came up with for them called Warm and Fuzzy, which became a little bit of a hit for them. And then they asked us to help them as they developed this new channel called the Pickleball Channel. I don't know if you play.
I saw that on your one of your posts. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually, I got together, got some writers that I knew from like TV writers, and we put together, an actual half an hour show. We call it like The Soup meets Sports Center meets Pickleball. So it's a comedic show hosted by Paul Scheer. We're talking about celebrity talent. We're amazingly lucky to get Paul, and he's been great. And so we have a couple episodes that are sort of pilot format. And then hopefully in 2025, we'll get an actual show going. And then, then we can ask for advertisers to come and sponsor our show rather than being the sponsors and doing the thing. Like this is an act, it's a nice step for us to sort of have something to say. We know how to do entertainment in itself, and we know how to do brands. And then starting to look at ways to put those two things together is another area we're really excited about.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see that synergy. That's cool stuff.
Sorry, shameless plug there for our new show.
No, that's what this is for.
Watch the pickleball program on Pickleball TV if you get it.
Cool, man. Well, Alex, thanks so much for being with me today and chatting. And excited to continue to chat with you in the future, and have a great rest of your week.
Anytime. Thanks, Justin.
All right, man. Be well.
Always good to talk to you, man.
Likewise.
See ya.